Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sam. In this video, I'll walk you through the various types of IP addresses that AWS uses for its resources, namely private IP, public IP, and elastic IP. If you have not subscribed to this channel, do well to subscribe now, share for others to know, like, comment, put every question that you have in the comment section, and I'll be glad to answer all of them. See you in the video. Today, our objectives for today will be Internet Protocol address, what we normally call the IP address. We're going to discuss AWS public IP, private IP, and elastic IP. In the first place, what is IP address? When you talk of IP address or Internet Protocol address is a unique identifying number assigned to every device connected to the internet. Okay, so unique identifying number that is assigned to devices that are connected to the internet. So there's no way you could have two devices or two IPs assigned to one particular device on the internet. No, it doesn't happen that way. When that thing happens, it will draw your attention that you have conflict, IP conflict. Okay. So what does IP do? Normally what IP does is it helps to communicate among devices. Okay. Communication means that sending and receiving information among devices that are connected on the internet. That is the primary purpose of IP address. Okay, so now AWS supports two versions of IP addresses. Okay, the first one is the IP version 4. Okay, the IP version 4, this is the traditional IP address system. So it usually has this, let's say 100.72 dot maybe 1.5. Okay, this is the conventional IP address system. This is the IP4 version. Okay, IP version 4 IP address. The second one that AWS supports is the IP version 6. Now this one, it is usually assigned to Internet of Things devices, like the new smart homes, smart electric cooker, smart fridges, smart cars. These cars coming up, they are all using IP version 6 because the IP version 4 is very limited. So if you are to assign IP version 4 to smart IoT, Internet of Things devices, we are going to elapse this IP address very soon. So all these smart devices, they use IP version 6. Now this one comes in the form of hexadecimal in 8 octets. Okay, so an example would be that you can have something like AE53, let's say 8A3B. You see, it's supposed to be, this one's supposed to be 4 and then separated by a column with 8 octets. Okay, I can't continue, but this is how it looks like that. So this is the IP4 versions used for Internet of Things, IoT. Okay, and this one is the conventional or the traditional way of IP address. Let's move on to the private IP address. Okay, so when you talk of an IP, private IP address, with respect to AWS, what that means is that, or not just with AWS, any organization, when it's private, it means that one, it is not reachable over the internet. Normally businesses use them internally within their organization so that it doesn't travel outside. What it means that it doesn't travel over the internet. So private IPs are not reachable over the internet. This one we are talking in terms of AWS. Okay, private IPs remain associated when an instance is stopped or hibernated. Okay, when you stop an instance or when you hibernate an instance, the IP address doesn't release. It is still the same. It is only released when terminated. Private IP will only be released when this instance has been terminated. That is when the private IP will be released. Apart from that, when you stop it, when you hibernate it, you still have your IP address, private IP address associated with the instance. The next thing is that, like any other private instance, communication is only done among the same network. In AWS terms, it is AWS resources only within the same VPC. Communication happens only within the same VPC. Okay, it doesn't travel outside, but then these private IPs only communicate with AWS resources that is within the same VPC. Now let's move on to the next one, which is public IP. Public IP, it is reachable over the internet. That is one. It can communicate between your instance and the internet. So if you spin up a new instance, it assigns a public IP to it so that you can SSH into it. Without that, there's no way your instance can talk to other machines over the internet. So it is the work of the public IP address that will help communication among the instance and then your PC. Now this one, IP released. The IP is released when the instance is stopped. Okay, when the instance is stopped, hibernated, or terminated. When your instance is stopped, hibernated, or terminated, it releases the public IP address. I've told you public IP address are limited in supply. Okay, so AWS wouldn't want you to hold on to the IP address, public IP address, when you have stopped your instance. So when it's stopped, it releases it. When you boot it back on, it assigns another public IP to it. The next thing is that when you associate your instance with an elastic IP, it releases the public address. Okay, we'll demonstrate all of these, but then we have to go through first. When you associate your instance with elastic IP, it releases the public IP. Okay, so if you have an instance which is already associated with a public IP, the moment you assign or you associate an elastic IP to that instance, it releases that public IP and assigns the elastic IP to that instance. And the last thing with AWS public IP is that AWS charges for public IPv4 addresses. Okay, this one, it used to be free until recently when AWS decided to charge you for that. So now you are being charged for all the public IP addresses that is assigned to your instance or any other AWS resources. You are being charged for that. Now the last thing we'll talk about is the elastic IP address. Okay, what is this elastic IP address? Now when you talk of elastic IP address, it is a static public address that is allocated to your AWS account. Okay, static public IP that is assigned to your AWS account. So it is assigned to your AWS account, meaning that you can change a particular instance, the IP, the elastic IP that is assigned to an instance. You can take it, release it, and then assign that same IP to a different instance. Okay, it is not attached to your instance. It is assigned to your AWS account such that it is flexible. You can be able to move it from one instance to another instance. Okay, so get to know that it's static. It doesn't change. That is why we call it static. The next one is that it is region specific. It is region specific and cannot be moved to a different region. Okay, so when you assign elastic IP, it is region specific. What that means is that if you assign it in a, let's say, US West region, it means that it is only resources in that region that can be used. You cannot move it to another region, let's say Asia region or Africa region. No, only specific regions or within a specific region where you can be able to assign these IP addresses. The next one is that get to know that AWS allows a quota of 5 elastic IP address per region. So because it is very scarce, I've already told you that elastic IPs are very scarce. Likewise, the public IPs. Okay, so within each pool that Amazon has these elastic IPs, it allocates 5 per region. So if you go to, let's say, Africa region, you are able to assign only just 5. When you go to US East region, you can be able to assign 5. When you go to Asia Pacific region, you can be able to assign 5, because these elastic IPs, they are not that many. They are limited in supply. So AWS limits or gives you a quota as to how many you can be able to use per region. The last thing we'll talk about before we head over to the demo is that this one, to AWS charges you for it. AWS charges for elastic IP addresses. Okay, with that being said, let's move on to the demo. Okay, so welcome back. Click on, you have to spin an EC2 instance. So you can find it on the dashboard, or you type it in the service search bar. So let's say EC2. So we go to instances, then you click on launch instance. So let's give it a name like dev underscore test Ubuntu. When you go to the key pair, let's give it a new key pair. Let's give it dev underscore test. Click on create key pair. So everything is fine. Our network, we choose auto assign IP. Okay, it's enabled, which means that it will give us public IP address so that we can be able to launch into it. So click on launch instance. Okay, let's get our IP address. So this is our private IP address, and then this is our public IP address. This is what opens up connection to the internet. Okay, for you to have communication from the internet to your instance. So let's copy that, and then let's log in into our EC2 instance. So we navigate to where our key pair is stored. Okay, it's stored in our downloads folder. Then we change the permission of the PEM file. Then we try and SSH into our instance. Our default username for Ubuntu machines is Ubuntu. Then our IP address. Okay, now we have been able to log in into our EC2 instance using the public IP address. So now let's log out and then try and connect with our private IP address. Okay, so we exit and then we try to log back into our EC2 instance with our IP private IP. So our 172.31.24.8. Let's see the response. It will certainly not respond. Okay, because private IPs are not meant to be communicated over the internet. Okay, now let's go to the elastic IP address. So for this one, let me just minimize it over here. It's still not going to work. Now, to associate your instance with an elastic IP, let's go and create elastic IP address and then associate it with our instance. Take note of our IP address. Okay, our public IP address. So let's go to elastic IP, click on allocate elastic IP. US East 1 region, that's fine, no problem with that. So just click on allocate. Now we've been given 18.233.146.12. This is our new IP address. We can tag it right here and give it a name like dev underscore test EIP. Okay, we save it. Now let's go back to our IP address, our instance, to check whether we still have our, so let's go back to instances, dev. Look at that, 54.198.1. So we are now going to associate our elastic IP address with this dev instance. Okay, now let's go back to our elastic IP. Now you click on actions, go to associate elastic IP address, click on that. Is it an instance or a network interface? We want to associate it with an instance. Okay, so we click on instance and then we choose our dev instance, click on that. Let's associate it. So we have allocated or associated this elastic IP address with our instance. Okay, let's go back and check whether it's taking effect. Now our new elastic IP address has been associated with our instance. Okay, it has replaced the old one and given it a new IP address. So this is it. Now get to know that the moment you request for an elastic IP address, whether you are associated with an instance or a network interface, you will still be charged. Okay, you will still be charged whether you associate or you don't associate, because I've told you that this IP address is coming from Amazon pool. It's limited in supply, so they just don't want you to have it and then use it for free or just let it lie. They will charge you. So now that we've been able to associate our instance with it, we now have to release it such that if you are done using it, we don't continue to be charged on that. Okay, so we are now going to release our elastic IP address, but first of all we need to disassociate it first. So let's go to our instance and then stop our instance first. Okay, so you stop the instance and then we go to our elastic IP addresses, then we click on, hold on, let's refresh this one. Disassociate it, click on that, and then we disassociate it first. Okay, and then when we are done, we need to release the IP address. Okay, now that the elastic IP address has been released, when you go back to your instance, it will be assigned a different IP address. Okay, public IP address. Let's refresh it. Okay, oh, our instance is stopped, so we need to start it first. Okay, so our instance is running now. Click on that and then we have our public IP address back. Okay, so if this tutorial has provided you with value, please subscribe, like, give any comment, whether any questions you want to ask, put that in the comment section and I'll be sure to answer every one of it. Thank you so much and see you in the next video.